Hi, welcome to Birthing at Home, a podcast. I'm Elsie, your host. I'm a home birth mum of 2 little boys. I'm a mental health nurse, a home birth advocate broadly, but also more specifically in the state of Victoria, and I'm an ex-student midwife. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people who are the traditional custodians of the land I'm recording on in Melbourne, Australia. I would also like to acknowledge the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples have been birthing at home on country for tens of thousands of years prior to the British invasion, and acknowledge that sovereignty has never been ceded. This is episode 21 from Jessie in Sydney, who shares with us briefly her hospital induction story with her first baby AJ and how that led her on a journey to choosing something completely different with her second baby Frankie, who she had a wild pregnancy with and then free birthed at home with the support of her husband. We also discuss birth story medicine and also how Jessie's tailbone broke during the birth of Frankie. If you are enjoying this podcast, please rate and review it, and if you really love it, supporting it through purchasing a shirt or buying me a coffee would be so appreciated. You can find all the links in the episode description or in the Instagram bio. Enjoy! Welcome, Jessie, to the Birthing at Home, a podcast.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here.
Yes, I was just saying to you that I was looking back in our Instagram messages and we've had this planned for a while. So it's awesome to finally get to meet each other. Do you want to start off by just telling the listeners a little bit about who you are, where you live, who's in your family kind of thing?
Yes, I would love to. So my name is Jessie. I live in Sydney in Australia with my partner Tom and my 2 children, AJ, who is 3, and Frankie, who has just turned 1.
Yeah, nice. Oh, that's right. There's so many Frankies. I also have a Frankie, and then Poppy, who was on a couple of weeks ago, she also has a Frankie. Yeah. Is your Frankie a girl or a boy?
A girl.
A girl, yeah. Poppy's was a girl as well, but I have a boy Frankie. That's so cool.
It's becoming much more popular, that name, I think.
Yeah, I was told that if a colleague told me the other day that if I've called Frankie like plainly Frankie, not like short for something, that means that he's going to be a lot of trouble. So I was like, great.
Not taking that on for myself.
Yeah. So AJ was born in hospital, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, and then Frankie was a free birth. Yeah. So do you want to give like a brief, I guess, summary overview of, I guess, your pregnancy with AJ, and I guess maybe in the context of, why you chose to then free birth with Frankie?
Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah.
So when I fell pregnant with AJ, I was 21. And I was the first out of all of my friends to have babies. So I just kind of followed the advice of my doctor and some older family members, and started following the hospital system, going and getting all of the tests done, and just navigating that. And when it came towards the end of my pregnancy, I started to feel a lot of pressure because I was told that I was starting to go overdue by the midwives.
Yeah.
And I kind of, I knew that I didn't want to be induced. Intuitively, I kind of felt like everything was fine with my baby. There wasn't actually any medical reason for me to be induced, and I was feeling very coerced into it, and I actually wasn't told that I could refuse an induction.
Yeah, okay.
So they started saying to me, we're going to have to book in the induction. I was about 41 weeks at this stage. And then they said to me, the latest that we're going to let you go is 41 plus 5. But we actually don't have any spots available that day, so you need to book in 2 days earlier at 41 plus 3. And then I started crying and I said, I don't want to be induced. Like, this was not part of my plan. And even still, nobody shared with me that I didn't actually legally have to.
Yeah, that you could say no. Yeah.
Yeah. I booked in the induction, and Went through that whole process. That was a 48-hour process. She ended up being born vaginally. Everything was okay, but I just was left with such an empty feeling, and I knew that something wasn't right with my whole experience. So, yeah.
Did you know about free birth or home birth or that kind of stuff before you became pregnant or had AJ?
No, I didn't know about home birth until I had actually gone to my first mother's group meetup after she was born.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, and then that's when I found out about home birth. And then it was a little while after that, I came across the Free Birth Society podcast on Spotify.
Yeah.
And that's when I started learning about free birth.
Yeah, amazing. That's, quite a common experience that people don't even know that home birth is an option, and that's kind of my whole thing, like just getting it out there that it is an option, or birthing at home, absolutely. And I suppose that probably, I guess that sense of disempowerment, did that like affect your postpartum with AJ, do you think?
I don't think it actually... I was kind of gaslit into believing that my experience was normal.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so I kind of suppressed a lot of that, I think, until a lot later, until I think when I free birthed Frankie, that's when I released a lot of those emotions.
Yeah, that makes sense, because, you like, especially if you haven't discovered alternate ways. I guess that there is this sense that the normal path for, I think it's like 98% of women in Australia, is to go and have their baby in the hospital, and we have so much trust in the healthcare system that, especially when you talk about consent and everything, that's like a big thing, especially in Australia, and like how to improve it. And so you expect that, like, in the medical system, all of these rules will apply, that, you'll be respected, informed consent, that kind of stuff. So you just, But then, so you found out about birthing at home from Mother's Group, and do you remember, like, what your first thoughts about that were when you heard that this was an option, or some other women, birth this way?
Yeah, my first thought was that I'm doing that next time.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. And so you find out you're pregnant with Frankie, and do you want to guide us through that journey a little bit?
Yeah, I'll take you back a little bit before that. So I actually fell pregnant in between AJ and Frankie. Okay, yeah. And I knew that I wanted to have a home birth. And I was trying to get into the midwife caseload at the public hospital, my local public hospital, so they would have the midwives come to my home and I could birth at home. So I started going down that route and began having the blood tests and the ultrasound with my doctor, and getting in contact with the hospital. And then when I was 9 weeks pregnant with that baby, we actually lost them. Okay, yeah. And I felt very strongly that was a push for me to take a different route. Yeah. Because I knew about free birth, and I kind of thought that it was a little bit crazy, but then at the same time, I felt very drawn to it. My partner was not on board at this stage. Yeah, okay, yeah. So yeah, when we lost that baby, that's when I felt like, no, this is the wrong path. Like, we're supposed to be doing it a very different way. Yeah. And that was a really big push for me. So then 2 months later, that's when we fell pregnant with Frankie. Yeah, wow. And how would you, knowing that you've chosen free birth with Frankie and embarking on, I guess, that pathway with midwifery care, like, do you have like any words to describe that, I guess, that initial care that you received? Like, because a lot of people want that midwifery continuity of care, so I'm just interested, like,
like what did you feel like you connected with the midwife, or did you feel like maybe that you didn't want, you know, people interfering? I guess sometimes like in pregnancy, even having a midwife can be felt as like intervention in a way.
Because I was still so early in my pregnancy, I never actually made it to meeting a midwife.
Yeah, okay.
So I don't think the hospital doesn't take on care until you're about 18 weeks pregnant.
Oh, wow.
That's when they take over from the GP here.
Yeah, yeah. And so was your GP, like when you thought that you would go down the group practice route, did you go to the GP first?
Yes.
Yeah. And do you remember, like, did they suggest the MGP to you? Because that's also another issue, is that GPs in particular seem to not be giving women all of the options.
I actually went to them saying that that's specifically what I wanted.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I had heard about it through my mother's group, and they told me that I needed to get in early as well because there were so many, it was very limited spots.
Yeah.
So yeah, as soon as I walked in that door with my GP, I was like, I want that referral letter.
Yeah. Write this down. Sign
Yeah.
it. Yeah. Cool. And so, I guess between AJ and having that pregnancy and losing that baby, what kind of, I want to say, like, education were you kind of absorbing during that period that might have, like, prepped you for, you know, feeling confident enough to free birth?
A lot of podcasts.
Yeah. Amazing.
And then basically I was just following my intuition. Like, I really didn't dive much into the education part of things until I was pregnant with Frankie.
Yeah. And so then I guess with Frankie's pregnancy, did you have a wild pregnancy with Frankie?
Yes.
Yeah, cool. Do you want to explain your experience of that a little bit?
Yes, I would love to. So my experience with Frankie, I felt so connected to her and my body, and my intuition, and I just felt like I was really in charge of myself and my baby, and the way that my whole experience was going. And it was very empowering, but it was also like a very lonely time for me because I didn't really have a like-minded community in that way. Like, my friends and family, we decided that we were going to keep our choices from them just to kind of protect our energy and like to avoid pressure from them.
Yeah.
So it was isolating but empowering at the same time.
Yeah. And like, I guess how does Tom's journey, I guess, fit into this, you know, because you said that Tom wasn't on board initially. Mm-hmm. What did he kind of think about it initially?
He was very shocked. He thought that I was absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
And yeah, it took us a lot of conversations to kind of get to a point of compromise.
Yeah.
I actually asked him before I came on today to talk to you.
Yeah.
He said that he knew that because I had set my mind to it, I wasn't going to budge.
Yeah.
I was very, very determined to do it this way.
Yeah.
So yeah, after many, many conversations, we came to the compromise that we would hire a doula.
Okay, yeah.
Who would be at the birth and postpartum. So yeah, that's what I did. I hired a beautiful doula to come and help us, but I always had an inner knowing that I didn't actually need her.
Yeah.
But I think it was just peace of mind for him to have her not only to support me but to support him, because I think he felt nervous about being my one point of support. And then we would have my 2-year-old there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. With your pregnancy with AJ, you said that you just kind of like followed whatever tests. So with Frankie, I guess you felt pretty then determined to avoid everything like that. Yeah. And did you do did you do any work around, you know, I guess that intuition stuff, like trusting your body? Because having those tests can be, whether you like it or not, like handing that over to, you know, a blood test or an ultrasound or something, that can also be a little bit disempowering. You know, you're putting that in somebody else's hands. So to trust your body and trust that everything was okay. Did you do any particular work around that?
I did a lot of work, actually.
Yeah.
I listened to, like when I say I listen to a lot of podcasts, I say, like, I mean it.
Yeah.
I was listening to them all day, every day, just learning other people's stories. I also did, like, I was very big into meditation and taking the time to really sit with myself and my baby and just be and feel into what my intuition was telling me, how I was feeling, if I was feeling safe or not. And then I did the Freebirth Society Complete Guide to Freebirth. I did that as well, which I think made me feel much more confident in my body's ability. Just kind of having the knowledge of, like, the hormonal blueprint, and I feel like it gave me everything that I needed to know.
And did Tom listen to any of these many podcasts?
He did not.
He did not? That's pretty incredible.
No. Yep. He did not.
Yeah.
He's very trusting towards me. He knows that, I'll learn whatever I need to know and then kind of just relay the points onto him, like the most important points.
Yeah.
So, like, we spoke about what would happen in a situation where things weren't going ideally how we would want them to go.
Yeah.
And then we spoke about things like how he may be able to support me, but that's really it. Like, he was just winging it.
Yeah. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
You yourself, did you have any particular challenges or fears that you had to specifically work on to overcome? Because, you know, having gone through a vaginal childbirth before, you know, I guess there's quite a few bits to it, and like for some people, like myself, for example, I was quite occupied about the birth of the placenta, not even just the birth of the placenta, because, you know, in my first birth experience at home, I was made to feel like I had to have the syntocin injection.
Yeah.
And so then I had like this, oh, well, what if it doesn't happen? Like, what are my boundaries? Did you have any particular challenges or fears?
Yeah, I did. I had quite a few, but they were quite brief. Like, I feel like I was able to move through them very quickly. And they were more towards the end as well, like just things like being fearful of the pain and what if my baby didn't survive? What if I didn't survive? Just all of these things that I guess every birthing woman would kind of think about at some stage, but nothing that was so huge that ever made me feel like, oh my God, I can't do this. Like, I need to go and get help.
Yeah. And so in the lead up to the labour with Frankie, Were you doing anything particular? Like, obviously you listen to your podcast. Were you doing any other regular things?
No, not really. I was just kind of nesting around the house and making some freezer meals, and I really felt like I needed to just kind of cocoon myself in my house.
Yeah.
So I didn't socialize for a while, and it was a really beautiful time because my daughter and I, we got to spend so much time together.
Yeah.
Just the two of us.
Yeah.
I wasn't really doing anything in particular to prepare for the birth.
Yeah. Did you do anything in particular with or for AJ to prepare her for, being in the birth space?
Yes, actually we did quite a fair bit. So we would watch some birth videos on YouTube, and we would practice like the sounds that she may hear me making. So like I would make the sound and then she would do it as well.
Cute.
Yeah. I just talked to her a lot about things that she might see, and spoke to her a lot about how my doula would also be in the space, and but none of it mattered because she slept through the whole thing.
Still. How many times did you meet with the doula whilst you were pregnant?
Yeah, we had our meet and greet and then 2 official catch-ups at my house.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah.
Do you want to then walk us through the story of the birth of Frankie then?
Mm-hmm. I'm very excited. I don't get to relay this as often as I would like.
Yeah.
All right. So, my birth, it was long. So I was in early labor for 48 hours.
Yeah.
I was having contractions, sensations 20 minutes apart for the whole 48 hours, but they would settle when I would go to sleep. So I was still able to sleep, which was amazing.
Yeah.
So I went through the first day. Tom went to work. I was just moving through them all day. I had an urge that I needed to deep clean the house, so I did that.
Yeah.
I cooked a bulk lot of food. And then the Friday night, I had an acupuncture therapist come over.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Just because, like, my mother-in-law, she worked with this woman, and I just felt like I needed to relax a little bit.
Yeah.
So I invited her to come over, and she did all of her beautiful things, and it was just so nice to have that body work right before things started moving faster.
Yeah.
So that was Friday night. She came over, and then Friday night I slept. Saturday morning I woke up and my sensations were still 20 minutes apart. They weren't getting any stronger. And I said to my partner, all right, I think you should stay home from work today. Like, I feel like things are going to start to pick up. So he stayed home from work, and we spent the day just the 3 of us. It was very, very beautiful. We would go for walks to the park and sit at home, and I would bounce on my ball just listening to music. And it was a really special day for the 3 of us to spend that time together.
Yeah.
And then, it got to 8 p.m. that night, and my sensations were still 20 minutes apart. Not any closer together.
Yeah.
So I decided that I was going to go to bed. And then 2 hours later at 10 p.m., my partner came to bed and he woke me up. And he went to sleep, and I was kind of tossing and turning because my sensations were getting to a point where I couldn't sleep.
Yeah.
And then after a little while, I couldn't lay in bed anymore. So that's when I got up. I moved into our little tiny ensuite, and there was a toilet, a basin, and the shower. And the toilet and the shower were like 1 step away from each other. It was like the tiniest space ever.
Yeah.
And I did not leave this bathroom the entire time.
That's perfect. That's a perfect little setup.
Yeah, it was good. So yeah, I took a towel in and I placed it on the back of the toilet so I could sit backwards on the toilet and rest my head.
Oh, yeah.
And I was kind of sitting there for a while, and then I had lost my mucus plug.
Yeah.
And I became very excited. Yeah. I was like, oh my gosh, I can get in the shower.
Yeah.
And I knew that I had to be very mindful because we have limited hot water.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was very mindful of how long I was spending in the shower because I wanted to save the hot water for when I felt like I really needed it.
Yeah, of course.
So I spent quite a while like shifting from the shower to the toilet, to the shower to the toilet to try and conserve that hot water.
Yep.
And yeah, so when I was in the shower, I was like laying down on the ground in a child's pose position, and I would have the hot water just falling onto my lower back.
Yeah.
And then when a sensation came, I would kind of move my body intuitively, like getting into a very deep squat or like just moving from side to side. And I was very quiet. Like I didn't wake my partner up. I didn't wake my daughter up. And that was shocking because that was completely different to my first induced hospital birth.
Yeah.
Because I was like a whale there. So that shocked me a lot. And yeah, after a while of doing that, kind of shifting between the toilet and the shower, I was very thirsty.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I can't get out. Like I can't leave this bathroom. I'm going to have to wake my partner up. So I woke him up.
Yeah.
And I was like, all I need you to do right now is just get me a drink.
Yeah.
And he checked the time. It was 2 a.m. by that stage.
Yeah.
So I'd been 4 hours kind of doing it solo. He brought in my coconut water. And from there I started to get a little bit noisier.
Yeah.
And I could feel that I was kind of moving into transition.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I think because I had prepared myself for such a long birth experience, like 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
I wasn't accepting the fact that I was so close to birthing her.
Yeah.
So let me collect my thoughts here.
That's okay.
So my partner, he was just kind of sitting on the toilet and he would hand me my coconut water every now and then, just saying like, have a sip.
Yeah.
And then I moved onto the toilet again and he tried to give me a back massage.
Yeah.
And I remember I snapped at him. I was like, don't fucking touch me.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh crap, all right. She's got this, she's on her own.
Yeah.
And then he kept saying to me, should I call the doula? Should I call her? And yeah, because I thought that I still had hours and hours left, I kept saying, no, like, don't worry. I'm not even close. Yeah. Not in that many words, obviously. I was like, no, not yet.
Yeah, of course.
And then I was back in the shower again, and I started feeling the fetal ejection reflex.
Oh, wow.
And once I started to feel that, I said, okay, call her.
Yeah.
And I was feeling that for quite a while. Like, we weren't timing anything, so I don't know how long everything was going for.
Yeah. Time is often, well, pretty much always, I think, like a bit of a blur. Like, just a concept.
Unless someone else is really keeping track of all of it, it's non-existent.
Yeah. You're in like this weird space. Yeah.
Yeah. So then, I felt the fetal ejection reflex for quite a while, and then I stood up. No, I didn't stand up. I was sitting in a very deep squat.
Yeah.
And I felt a really big pop.
Okay.
In my bottom area.
Yeah.
Nothing came out, and I kind of knew that it wasn't my waters breaking, and I didn't know what it was, but I didn't really have very much time to think about it because I just moved straight into the next sensation. But
Did it hurt or anything, or you just literally felt a pop?
Yeah, I just felt a pop. I didn't feel any pain, which was Yeah, pretty crazy. Now that I know what it was.
Yeah. I guess I also know what it is. But, I guess that's the power of physiology. Like, if you let your body provide you with the endorphins and whatever else to manage to get on board to help out with pain and stuff, then
it's beautiful. Once I felt that pop, things began to move quite quickly. I remember reaching inside of my vagina and feeling the very top of Frankie's head, and I was like, oh my god, she's right there. But then I had kind of thought, okay, I've got a few more hours now, like I'm gonna have to spend so long pushing and kind of setting myself up for mentally for a lot longer of an experience. I decided, okay, I'm going to turn the hot water off now. I'll save it for when I really need it. And I stepped over to the toilet. I sat down. I had a sensation, and I had my hand over my vagina. And with that sensation, her head just popped out. Wow. And I stood up and I was holding her head. And I stepped back and I looked at her, and she was facing me. So she had been posterior this whole time. And with that step back, she just kind of slid out, and I caught her and pulled her up and looked at her in all her glory. Wow. And I said, my partner was in the background, and he said, holy shit. And I was like, oh my god, I did it.
Awesome. Wow. I can only just imagine 1 minute, just the change is so quick. It's just 1 minute Frankie is not there, and then the next boom she is. I agree. Holy shit. Wow. And so the doula didn't get to arrive.
So my doula, I actually didn't know that she had arrived.
Okay.
She told me 10 minutes before Frankie was actually born. She arrived and she popped her head in.
Okay,
And she's like, oh yeah, she's fine. And then she went and started doing the dishes. God bless her.
Amazing.
So she was downstairs, which was nice. And then when she heard the cries, Frankie's crying, she came upstairs, and that's when she kind of set the bed up with all the towels, and it was really lovely to have her there to help with the aftercare.
And I guess also that's the power of learning to sit on your hands. I think they refer to it, just because I guess people often think that doulas are there to support during the labor and whatnot, and be physically present in the birth space. But that's awesome that she just had a little look and was like, nah, she's got this. I'm going to go wash the dishes. That's amazing.
She was incredible. She was everything I needed. And I think what made it so special was she was about 35 weeks pregnant and having a wild pregnancy and free birth herself.
Wow. Had she planned that? That's amazing. Because then you're kind of on the same journey together almost.
Yes. Well, I think we were expecting Frankie to arrive much earlier. Because I was sometime between 42 and 44 weeks.
Oh, of course.
I think.
Yeah.
We were expecting Frankie much earlier. And I just kind of kept going and going and going.
Still cookie, that's all right. Amazing. And so what was the birth of the placenta like?
So we moved to the bed. We waited until I felt ready, so I think it was about 45 minutes to an hour until I felt, okay, I'm ready for placenta to go and birth my placenta. So I took Frankie into the bathroom with me, squatted over my container, and my placenta just slipped out.
Yeah, wow.
So it was so easy. And then we moved back to the bed, and by then my 2-year-old had woken up and had come in and met her little sister, and we kind of looked at the placenta together.
Yeah.
My partner and my 2-year-old cut the cord together, which was a very beautiful moment.
So special, yeah.
Yeah. And then, my placenta went into the freezer. I was planning on burying it much, much earlier, but I actually only did that last week.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, to commemorate my daughter's first birthday.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. What did you plant above it?
I actually just buried it in the ground because, we're leaving to travel Australia next year.
Oh, yeah.
So I knew that I needed to put it somewhere, and I felt the most special place for me to put it was in the yard of the home that she was born in.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Wow.
And what was your, postpartum like? I imagine physically quite different to the postpartum with AG.
Yeah, so I haven't mentioned yet, but once I started to kind of land from the birth, I began to feel
the most important part.
I began to feel quite a bit of discomfort in my bottom area, my lower back.
Yeah.
And I ended up realizing that big pop that I had felt was in fact my tailbone breaking.
Wow. I remember actually when you shared your story in Instagram post form, and I was just like, what the heck? Oh my gosh, I've never heard of that before. Do you know how common/uncommon that is?
I had never heard of it before until I shared my story, and then all of these stories started popping up. People were like, oh my gosh, me too.
Wow.
So I think it is much more common than we think.
Yeah.
But it's not something that you come across every day.
No, that's incredible. And so the pain started to kick in with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably within a few hours, once all of my hormones had kind of settled down.
Yeah.
That's when I began to feel the pain, and that was quite honestly excruciating.
Yeah. Well, that's absolutely.
But I wouldn't change it.
No.
I would do it all again the exact same way.
Yeah. I don't think. I'm not sure. Is that? I'm not really sure where you would begin if you said, if you could rewind and play again, what you would change, because really that, in my mind, that could happen anywhere, in any setting, under any, wow. And so what was the recovery like? How long does it take for your tailbone to heal?
It took about 4 months to heal completely.
Yeah.
But it was probably the first 2 or 3 weeks I was in pain. I couldn't sit at all.
Yeah.
After that, I bought one of those donut cushions.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah, and I could sit. It was a tricky time as well because she was born in November, and then we had Christmas and New Year's, so we had all of these things that we were doing.
Yeah.
I think I kind of forced myself out of my postpartum healing bubble a little bit too early.
Yeah.
Which I think inhibited my healing with my tailbone.
Yeah.
But it was about 4 months all up until I could sit 100% comfortably.
Yeah.
But even still, if it gets a little bit cold or I sit on concrete for too long, then it gets a little bit achy.
Yeah.
But nothing too bad.
Wow, that's incredible. The body is amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, reflecting on, the birth of AJ and Frankie, how would you say, that, because hospital and free birth are worlds apart, really. Yeah. How would you, describe the impact of having that free birth has had on you as a mum, a woman, a person?
Yeah. My experience with having my free birth completely changed who I am.
Yeah.
It has given me, I feel, the courage to trust myself.
Yeah.
And recognize that we don't need to live our lives and raise our children in a way that we are made to believe that we have to.
Yeah.
So yeah, since then, like I'm a total rebel now. Like I just do everything the way that I want to do it.
Yeah.
I don't really care what anyone else thinks. And I think without that experience, I wouldn't have the self-trust and the courage to kind of step out of those norms. When it comes to mothering and just life in general, I think.
Yeah. I've heard some mums talk about, that especially thinking about the hospital system, but also in some home birth situations with a midwife present, that there's this element of people pleasing that happens, and I can empathize with that with my first pregnancy as well, that in society, like, that's how we're raised to stick to the status quo. Don't be a rebel. And if you're a rebel, you're being naughty and you will be reprimanded. And so it's just like people pleasing, following what everybody else says, and having their free birth really changed that for them. So I think that's like so powerful, and probably also contributes to, I believe there's a bit of a rise of free births in Australia, which is very empowering to hear, I think.
Yeah, there 100% is a rise.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so beautiful to witness.
Yeah. And did you attend any mothers groups or things like that? I guess Christmas, having a baby around Christmas is so tricky, but have you been able to share your experiences and knowledges about free birth in like mother type settings?
So I never sought out a mainstream mothers group because I felt like I needed to find my own community.
Yeah, fair.
And I ended up, like, I did find my community at the beginning of this year.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are, like, a lot of the women in the community are home birthers. So I have been able to share my story with them.
Yeah.
I'm also very open about my story when I just meet random mothers at the park or at the shops. So I'm very open about it. Yeah. And then, just online and on social media, I think that's where a lot of my impact around free birth is at the moment. Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your stories with me.
Thank you. Thank you for having me and giving me the space to share them.
Of course.
There's such medicine in sharing our stories.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, birth story medicine. Society, our birth culture really needs birth story medicine, and you're I, like you and so many women, really become empowered by listening to the birth stories of others and the experiences of others. And I'm so grateful that you've contributed to being a part of this change.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Jessie.